Hello and welcome to Stardew Valley in Minecraft, a new series where I build the world of Stardew Valley in Minecraft, one area at a time. Last episode we made these beautiful houses, we extended the river westwards, we added some trees, the graveyard, the sewers. All in all, a very good start making progress on the town. And now we're gonna work further north. We are going to start with the inn, which is of course owned by Gus. Then we're gonna make the square here in the middle, and we're going to be adding Pierre's general store and Harvey's clinic. Harvey lives alone in his clinic, but Pierre lives with his wife Caroline and his daughter Abigail. Now, initially last week I also said that maybe we were going to get to Pam's trailer and George's house. However, there was a comment pointing out that maybe it should be a good idea if we added Pam's house instead. And I think this is a pretty good idea. However, with the current plan, I'm not sure if that's going to fit exactly, so I might have to plan out a little bit more space for the river on that side. However, George and Pam's house will have to wait until the next episode, because the inn, Pierre's general store, and Harvey's clinic, and some terraforming around the place is going to be quite a bit of work already. And yeah, that is going to take up probably the entire episode. So that is the plan for today. First off, I'm going to be collecting a bunch of resources, so I'm going to show you a few clips of me collecting some of that. I'll see you in a few moments when I have everything gathered. And we are back. I have collected quite a few resources. You can see all of the shulker boxes right behind me. You can also see a few netherite tools here on my hotbar. I initially didn't really have plans to make my tools netherite, but I needed to go to a bastion in order to get myself some magma cream, because no matter how many magma slimes I destroyed, they would not drop any magma cream. So I went off to a bastion, and the first chest I opened just happened to have a smithing template in it. As I did gather some netherrack previously for the build behind me, I stumbled upon a few ancient debris, and I did make 2 ingots, and so I turned the 2 tools that I use the most into the netherite variants. Now that'll be perfect because we'll need to be doing lots of terraforming over the next few episodes. I mean, maybe even throughout the entire series. Before we get to terraforming, we're going to be building our first building right here, the inn. This is a place where you can hang out and chat with a bunch of the people, and you can also unlock some recipes here. Now currently I do not have any plans to actually unlock some of the recipes here, but I am curious and my mind is thinking about ways that we can maybe unlock some crafting recipes here. Because this is of course a little bit of a system that will be introduced later when we get to building the actual player house. However, it is something that I have to think about now, since later on we'll be making Pierre's general store, which offers food, and the inn is a place where you can get food. So all of these places are about food, so I do need to think about how does the player make all the different foods, and it's a little bit confusing. So I had to do a little bit of work for that, and recipes and unlocking them is something that I am thinking about a lot. So yeah, without further ado, let's get to building, otherwise I'll be rambling about food for the next 2 hours, so we don't want that. I'll see you in just a little bit when the inn is done. The inn. There's one little thing missing though, and that's over here. My idea was to use the shelves to put the name of the inn, and I have spent some time creating a bunch of banners. We also did the same for Pierre's, by the way. I even made a little arrow. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and grab all these banners, and I'm gonna write in the shelves here. We have the, and then of course we have Star Drop, and then we finish it off with Saloon. There we go. And now we have it, the Stardew Saloon. I know it's a little bit off-center, and that might trigger some people. I might also... What I could do, however... Let me know what you think, if this is better or not. Maybe this is better, but then there's like a little space in there, right? The Stardew Saloon. This is more centered. Yeah, there it is. I really like the color palette here. I try to have a little bit of variance as opposed to some of the other colors. We are using, of course, some of the bricks, and in addition to previous buildings, we are using the red brick. And then for this one, I have the entrance a little bit elevated. Of course, when we go in the inn, we have this cute little bar. It is a lot smaller than the actual inn, because if you look at the reference, the inn is massive in size on the inside, so it didn't quite fit everything in right there. So for this one in particular, I am using multiple floors, more so than we did before. As you can see behind me, there is a little basement. But for the floor here, we just have a bar. I do have to put a few small details in that I forgot to put in yet. And I'm back. I'm just gonna put this here. Perfect. So yeah, now we got a few things here in the bar that represent glasses and some bowls and stuff. This is supposed to be like the dead animal head hanging on the wall. And here in the corner we have a little jukebox. And then if we go upstairs, we have two small rooms. I decided to put these upstairs. Here, of course, we have a little room with a plant and a small table and a small window to look outside. And then over here we have the bedroom with a small TV. And lastly, when we go into the basement, because let's be honest, the arcade belongs in the basement, we have two arcade boxes, which I used some shulkers and nether stars to represent them, and I think it works kind of well. Then here we have our vending machine, which, you know, you can get some cola or some other drinks out of this. Great. And then over here, I added a small little storage for, I don't know, wine or other drinks that you could get from the basement. So yeah, there we go. Next up, I want to check out the main square and some of the foliage on the west side of this. And then later, I will also do a bit of terraforming around that side. Now, while I do that, I think I can turn this into one big time-lapse where I terraform and build both Pierre's general store and the Harvey's clinic all in one go. So let's go ahead and run the big time-lapse of today. See you back here in a few minutes. And very slowly it is all coming together. I am now standing in the central square with around me a little bit of terraforming. Yes, there we go. We have done a little bit of terraforming all the way around. We started on some of the cliffs. Of course, that will be the road to the farm. And over there we will head to the community center. And here we have Harley's clinic and Pierre's general store. I am super happy with how this little detail turned out. Of course, in the actual clinic, there is a little bit of an inversion of color, but I think this actually works really well if you take into consideration Minecraft's detail level. And then, of course, I used some more banners for Pierre's general store. I'm not quite sure about the color of the balcony and the doors, but I couldn't really find anything else that I liked as much. Now for the interiors, let's go ahead and have a look at Harvey's. When we step inside, I wanted to keep a very clean look, so there is going to be a lot of white. So here we have the reception, and then if we go through, this to me feels like a small chamber where the doctor can look at you and inspect and perhaps prescribe some medicine or whatever. And then of course here, when we come around the corner, there is going to be some beds to sleep in. Not just sleeping, of course, you gotta be taken care of properly in this hospital. And then to save some space, I made a ladder instead of a staircase, and then we come up to this very cozy, sort of cabin-like feeling up here. We have a nice corner couch over here, and then when we come around, you have a small kitchen with a nice look outside. And then over here, we've got a table. And then over here, I also added a little machine next to the window, which feels like maybe something to listen to the radio with. And yeah, that's it for Harvey's. I really enjoy the look of it from all the angles over here. It is so much fun. But the bigger challenge for fitting the interior inside a building has definitely been Pierre's. Of course, we all know that there is quite a lot of stuff there. So we enter the building and then we get into the first big room. Now, of course, I tried to scale it down just a little bit to make it fit, and it really feels like a supermarket here. And on the right, it seems like this is the fresh department where you have like a lot of products in baskets or something. You can just pick them out, and then here we have some pumpkins. And then on the left, we have a bunch of shelves. Now, who knew that shelves would make for good shelves, right? So I filled them up with a bunch of small items that either remind me of food or are actual foods. And of course, in the back, we added a little flower stand, because of course in Pierre's you can buy some saplings. However, in my version of Pierre's, there is currently not really any saplings to buy. However, I am considering maybe adding wood tiers as like buyable saplings that you go from one tier to the next. However, I am not quite sure if that's going to add anything substantial. What we can buy though is these 6 beautiful items. Now, some of them may seem logical because we're going to start out with wheat on the farm. And then the idea is that you're going to be buying the next product with wheat seeds. And then of course you buy the potatoes with the wheat, the carrots with the potatoes, etc, etc. You just buy one crop after the other. And of course here you can see how much you need of each to buy that product. You throw it in here just like with the fishing rod in Willie's shop. And then you might be wondering, why do we have dirt in this shop to buy? In Stardew Valley, you are kind of limited how much crops you buy from Pierre's store at once. You buy them during spring or during summer, and then you buy a ton of seeds, you plant them all, you harvest them after several weeks or sometimes a couple of days, and then you sell a bunch. However, in Minecraft, of course, these crops, you plant them and they produce more than enough to make more crops. Except, of course, pumpkins, those are a little bit more difficult to duplicate. But you're pretty much done. Once you've unlocked one of them, you can just make them go forever. So the limiting factor on the farm will be dirt, because I'm going to make it so that the farm is mud and sand and gravel, and not all of it is going to be grass and dirt. So you will only start out with a small patch of grass at first. And so you'll come here to the shop to buy dirt for gold. And that way you'll slowly expand your farm to be able to grow more crops at once. Now these prices, they might change in the future, but for now I do like this amount. So let's go ahead and buy ourselves one dirt. And then you should see it coming up over here. There we go, one dirt acquired. Now if we look at the floor plan of Pierre's general store, you'll see that it is quite big, and it's all on one floor. Now of course that's never gonna fit in here. So what I did want to keep on the bottom floor is the kitchen, because in the kitchen there is a way to get to the greenhouse through an event with Caroline, where you can get tea leaf seeds. And so we have the kitchen here, and then through the back we enter the little greenhouse. And I really liked just tucking that in the back here. And once again, to preserve space, I decided to go with ladders instead of full-on staircases. And then we make it up to Pierre's and Caroline's bedroom. And I really love this mushroom as a wall texture, I must say. Like the very subtle lines at the top, it just makes for a perfect wallpaper. Now, Abigail's room has a much more interesting wallpaper, which is very much like a full-on sea painted on the walls with a bunch of fish all over the place. So I went with this over here and I used the glazed terracotta. Then, of course, there are a couple of fish to find all over the place, and I must say that I really like the transition this way. And then of course down here we have the game computer and a bed. I've got plenty of paintings all over the wall like always. Man, so far I've used over 2 stacks of paintings already, and we aren't even halfway all of the houses. And then Abigail also has some access to the balcony. However, that's not all. If we go down here, we have a small little hallway that leads to this large room where they do a bunch of exercises a couple of times in the week. We of course have the fireplace, It is a very nice, big, cozy room. And then of course in the back we have a little temple. I try to keep it as close as possible and it looks kind of funny, but I like it. It is perfect. And with that done, we have made quite a bit of progress on the town today. So yeah, next time we're gonna have to continue further east with George and Pam's house. And yes, I am going to build Pam's house. However, the color of these buildings is gonna be quite the challenge, I must say. These colors are really not in Minecraft at all. So I'm gonna try my best to come up with something that looks good, but still reminds me of those houses. Now, if you don't mind, I'm gonna restock these shells and I hope to see you in the next video. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to keep up with the series.